Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. Some interesting news last night. And look, I don't think the probability of this news happening is high. I'm not going to pretend like that is the case. But I do think there is something interesting about the Browns being linked to this player, being involved in this kind of news, given where we feel like they should be as a team. And that news is from Jordan Schultz, who reports that the Panthers, Browns, Colts are among the teams that have showed interest in trading for Bengals All-Pro Trey Hendrickson, per multiple sources. Now, if you don't know, Trey Hendrickson has been in the middle of a contract dispute with the Cincinnati Bengals for a very long time. Also, he's requested a trade. They then started working on the contract. Then those talks fell through. And then this report came out that he is now again looking for a trade because they're at another impasse with the contract. And it is worth noting, because I know what you're thinking. Well, the Browns aren't going to trade for Trey Hendrickson and pay him $45 million or whatever it is that they're paying Miles. The word is, from when I talk to people who are connected to the Cincinnati Bengals, is that Trey Hendrickson is not asking for that kind of money. He's just asking for guaranteed money past the first year. So I would not assume that whatever team trades for him, it's 100% guaranteed that they're going to have to make him the highest paid defensive player in all football. I don't think that's the case. I think there is a chance that there is a contract that can get done that's more reasonable, which might be part of why the Browns are interested. It's also worth noting that Trey Hendrickson is not, he's not old, but he's not a young man, right? He's about my age, so take that with whatever you take. But he's 30. So, Jordan Schultz says here also, an in-division and in-state trade is highly unlikely, and any deal will be tough regardless. Cincinnati is believed to want an impact player or two, plus a draft pick in return. Now, again, like I said at the top of the video, do I think there is a high probability that the Browns are going to land Trey Hendrickson in a trade? No, I don't think there's a high probability. But if you're asking me, do I think it's interesting that the Browns' name is popping up around this trade? I would say, yeah, that's a bit interesting. I'm a little surprised by that. Again, some of it's because it's very, very unlikely, but also, think about what that defensive line would look like just for a second. And if you allow me to indulge a fantasy here, but a defensive line of Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, Mason Graham, and then, you could put Collins in there, you could put Shelby Harris in there, you could put Mike Hall in there. Pick your poison, right? Basically, if you're the Cleveland Browns. And that would be awesome. That would be the most dominant defensive line in football. And I think more importantly, you would have a ton of depth. I do always have this thought pop up whenever we talk about like overloading a defensive line with just incredible talent, just how impactful that position can be when it's overloaded like that. Because I think at some point you get so good at defensive line that teams just find ways to avoid it. And just get rid of the ball quickly and put the stress on other parts of the team. But nonetheless, I mean, the fantasy of having these kind of pass rushers on this team with Myles Garrett is an enticing one. But that's not what I find the most interesting about this report. Again, it might be fun to fantasize about the possibility of putting Trey Hendrickson on this football team. It's an intoxicating thought to have that level of defensive line. But my first thought when I saw this was, that's interesting, because the Browns this whole offseason have not really been that interested in 30-year-old players who want a new contract, who can help you win now. That's been the case. We've had multiple of these guys pop up. Debo Samuel, Terry McLaurin. You didn't hear the Browns were connected to any of those, right? The closest thing is like Brandon Ayuk, but Brandon Ayuk's a couple years younger, so you can argue that he could fit a different window. But for the most part, the Browns looked at this and said, hey, we're interested. Now, this is just my speculation, right? I'm not trying to act like this is a fact or this is what you must believe because I'm just speculating here, right? I think it would be interesting to know when exactly did the Browns express interest about Trey Hendrickson? Because was this something that they expressed interest about at the beginning of this process, and this is just a player that they would want to add no matter what? Or is this something that they've recently thrown their name in the hat? Because if this is recent, right, and the Browns are now showing interest in a player like this, I think that says a couple of things about where behind the scenes this team feels like they are going in the near future. Because the truth is, you do not trade for a player or consider trading for a player like Trey Hendrickson if you're rebuilding, if you think you're far away, right? That's not something that you do. If you are confident that you're going to need at least 2 more draft classes to fix this roster, you don't trade for Trey Hendrickson. Because by the time you fix the roster, he's going to be 33. He's going to be on the most expensive years of that contract. It's not going to make a ton of sense. But to be willing to take on Trey Hendrickson, give him a new contract, and trade for him, even though you know it's very unlikely, I think is interesting. Because I don't think the Browns went into this 2 months ago thinking that they would feel like they're at a place with this team that they'd be comfortable trading for a guy at that window. This is not just speculation I'm having because you're hearing that the Browns are interested in this guy in this one report, right? There are a number of things that make me lean in this direction, right? So all we've been hearing in camp is how pleased the team is with the progress of where they are, how pleased the coaches are. We've been hearing that they've looked better at each phase than some folks expected. And then they get done with joint practice. And the general tone, and this is important here, right? Not just from Browns media people, and I think Browns media people tend to be more cynical about the team than other media people, but also Philadelphia media people. We're saying, hey, this Browns team might be better than we think they are. They might just be a little bit better than we think they are right now. At the very least, a lot of people have sobered up to the thought that I've been pushing for a while, that this is not a 2 or 3 win football team, right? Look at what had to go wrong last year for this football team to win 3 games. They had to have not just the worst quarterback play in the NFL, but the worst quarterback play by a 16-player margin. So 32 quarterbacks, you add 16 names to the list, you get where the Browns were at with quarterback play last year. They were awful. Like, they weren't just last, they were minus 16 in quarterback play, according to success percentage last year. That's how bad this football team was at quarterback. That had to happen. On top of that happening, you had a down year from your offensive line because you hired the wrong offensive line coach. On top of that, your kicker was god-awful last year. So you're not able to throw the ball. You're not able to run the ball. You're not able to do anything. You're not even able to kick field goals. So all 3 phases of the offense, or at least scoring points, went wrong last year. You had incredible amounts of injuries on the offensive line. You had all kind of injuries with your running backs. Your quarterbacks got injured. And even when they weren't injured, they stunk. All of that had to happen to this team in order for them to stink last year. If they get mediocre quarterback play this year, which would be a significant upgrade to where they were last year, if they get solid offensive line play, which would be a significant upgrade from where they were last year, and if they even get just mediocre kicking from their field goal kicker, that will be an immediate upgrade from where they were last year. This team's going to be better than where they were last year, unless disaster strikes them, right? That's my belief with this football team. It seems like other people are seeing that with how they look. And look, the Browns have went back to that Kevin Stefanski offense. They've betted on that, and they look like a team that is comfortable in their identity right now. We'll see what it looks like in the regular season, of course. This does not guarantee regular season success, but you feel a lot better about how they look right now than you did heading into the Dallas game last year. So that's all been happening in the background of this. And then now all of a sudden we're interested in players who are 30 again. We're interested in a guy like Trey Hendrickson, who is a win now move guy, right? That's a maximize my window guy. This could mean that internally the Browns feel like they aren't that far off from being able to make things happen. Now, why do they have this renewed optimism, if this is even the case? And I think that's important to remember. I'm speculating here. Well, it might just be because the roster looks good. It might be because they're encouraged with what they're seeing out their young quarterbacks right now. It might be because they're encouraged with what they've seen out of Joe Flacco. But being interested in a 30-year-old player who's going to help you win now, that wasn't happening 3 months ago. Now it is. I don't know if this means what I think it means. It could not. Now, I'm not saying that this is guaranteed to be true. Don't act like I'm just saying that this is what's happening. I'm certainly not saying that. But I do think that this level of interest in a guy like him, and look, the Browns aren't going to get him. The Bengals would want Myles Garrett in return if they were going to trade Trey Hendrickson. That's what the Bengals would want. And the Browns aren't going to give him Myles Garrett, right? There's not a way that this deal gets done between these two teams, especially considering they play each other week 1. So I doubt a deal gets done for Trey Hendrickson. Trey's not going to be a Brown. But them being interested, that might be a little nugget there that you might dig at later and figure out meant more than we thought. It's interesting. It's very interesting. And look, if you're a Browns fan, even if Trey Hendrickson doesn't get traded to you, if he just gets traded, period, that's a huge win for you. Because if Cincinnati does not have Trey Hendrickson, I don't know what's going to anchor that defense. You know, I know they like Shamar Stewart. I like Shamar Stewart, but that's a lot to ask from a rookie to take over from what all-pro Trey Hendrickson has been able to do. I think it says a lot, potentially, about where the Browns might think they are. But that's just my opinion. Everybody is welcome to their opinion. And if you have your opinion, you want to express it down in the comment section below, feel free to drop your comment down there. Everybody have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.